I'm Eric Hurd-Lorenz. I run Avant Beetle, an experimental video game exhibition gallery, and we're here at the supermarket with my latest show, Beautiful Limits.
So what is Beautiful Limits?
So Beautiful Limits revolves around ideas of like utilizing video game engines in ways that you might not normally think about. Basically, like using digital space as a means of creating something that might be kind of considered postmodern for video games. I think the main thing I want people to take away from this is utilizing the interactive media as a way to like go beyond what we normally think about as video games. Everyone loves to go to an art gallery at a big museum, and there's not many video game pieces. That's changing in recent days. More galleries are doing sort of things like this. But really it is just to kind of like merge the video game scene and like the art scene together. In some ways it's for video game developers to kind of see that there are new ways to tackle what you might be trying to express, and then inversely for the arts community that there's a whole side of a medium that you can use that's interactive that can be probably useful in any sort of artistic endeavor that you might want to do.
So what sort of software is being used to create these games?
So the software is mostly two of the major video game engines, either Unreal or Unity. With some outliers, we have some ROM emulators that are here that are kind of like hacked emulators, but for the most part, kind of modern game development, even in the indie sphere or even the experimental sphere, kind of wants to be housed within a game engine that's kind of like well known.
Would you say that having a sort of passion for creation like you described is easier with sort of a lo-fi abstract video games like these versus, let's say, hyper-realistic AAA titles?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's easier, because the process is just, it's very in-depth, even like lo-fi things. There's like a very specific art to it, and with like AAA, you will basically have like one person whose job is like make the hair physics right. So it's with like hundreds, thousands of people doing like their own certain thing to create like what we would call AAA and like very big, hyper-realistic, fun things. But when it comes to like these sort of games, it's one, maybe two, maybe like a small collective that's just kind of like hobbyist work. So it's not easier, but it's more flexible because you're not tied down to like as much like tech art that AAA is kind of like known for, and you can easily just kind of be like, I'm gonna rip this scene out, I'm gonna do that. You have more like fluidity in trying to do kind of like, I don't want to call it like the indie route because indie's kind of been blown up in so many different ways, but like just the passionate route, you know. That'll be the new term, the passionate indie game.
Speaking of communities, how did you get involved with the supermarket?
Yeah, so I got involved with the supermarket initially this year for one of my shows back in July, but the relationship has kind of been there since the bakery, and back in 2018 I did my first show at the Warner Street one, the big warehouse, and it was basically just to like try to see if I could do it. It was before I had any sort of like label around it, before like Avant Beetle, before like getting into a lot of communities. And ever since then, I've done probably, let's say, like 6 shows in conjunction, either at the bakery or here at the supermarket, this one being probably my 7th, something around that. So I love it here. It's wonderful.
Would you have any advice for, let's say, a young video game designer who wants to start creating games like these?
Look deep within yourself and just try to make what's the truest thing to you. Because making video games is really hard, and a lot of people get really hung up on like, is it fun? What's the gameplay? Is it like, what are the technical aspects of it? And just kind of like just kick that out the window and just make something that's like very true to yourself and what you want to try and say.
Could you offer a brief description of some of the games that we have in the gallery here today?
So currently right next to me we have a game called AI Eyes, and what it is a game that utilizes like picture-to-picture neural network sort of and the neural network talks to the engine, and what he does is like just pastes like this should be a window, this should be a thing, and then like trained it on a bunch of pictures, but like not a lot of pictures, so just enough that it kind of gives you this like really weird, distorted, like almost psychedelic experience. Right behind me, this game called Out of Bounds is this game out of Germany, and it's a what's called like a haptic essay, and so it's a video game that's an essay about like space or like flight simulators and like how 3D technology it has been like incorporated over the years, and there's a lot of like wonderful themes that they go into that are kind of like about life and like gender and just like social issues. And then so over there we have this game called Terminal 69, and it comes out of New York from this group called Big Bag, and they're wonderful people and create this beautifully tragic story about Mario, the character, being reborn at the whims of Nintendo wanting to like appease us, and just it's a beautifully sad story, but it's also absolutely absurd. Definitely play it. And then over here we have a game, Yuha's Nightmares. It's out of St. Petersburg, I believe, and what it is basically like it's a nightmare simulator, kind of from the perspective of Yulia, who's the game developer, and it's almost like she's made a game about making a game and facing the nightmares that like haunt you every night, and all of the nightmares are like based on actual nightmares of her own. One of the other games, the Magic Box, is basically a curated hacked ROM of a bunch of Sega games where we get the controls to kind of manipulate, to call various parameters. Let's say Sonic grabs a ring and we remove a color. Grabs another ring, removing another color. Or like start tearing the video rendering from the inside out, outside in. If we want to switch the game, do we keep whatever sprites? It's an absolute madhouse when you get it working just perfectly. And that's because he really likes the idea of like pre-made games are just they're never actually finished. So we can then go in and like, especially with like ROM-based emulators, we can go in and kind of like remix it however we want to do it. And so this is his curation mix or remix of a bunch of old Sega games. And then finally, for the sixth one, Need 4E plus 9 speed, which translates to Need 4 billion speed. It's this fun experiment where it's like a 4-player game. You're driving around, but the fun of it is what's tied to your speed is the displacement from the origin point. So the faster you go, the faster the game moves out, like 4 billion units away. So the game engine's like really trying hard because it thinks about like, all right, here's where we should be, but I have to go render this thing 4 billion units away. And so that creates this like kind of glitching, and it's like it's solely because the engine's trying to keep up with the game. So that's that one. And yeah, like I said, they're all very different. They all tackle various ideas of video games, what they can be, what they are, and how we interact with them.